Hey, welcome to the Healthy Brain Podcast. Today I'm diving into concussion. What are the symptoms of a concussion? Why these symptoms are happening, and what you can do to recover from a concussion. So, I have worked over 25 years in brain rehabilitation. I've seen many people with not only a concussion, but a more significant brain injury, which is traumatic brain injury. Lots of different brains. I've worked with lots of different brains and lots of levels of difficulty that people are experiencing. But I will explain the difference between a concussion and a TBI. We're going to start with that. But then most of this episode is really talking about what you can do to help recover from a concussion. And concussions are happening not just, of course, with student athletes, it does happen frequently, but also adults can experience concussions. And what I have found working in the healthcare, but also as a patient, because I myself had a concussion many years ago following a car accident. Thankfully, I was able to recover. However, there was around 4 to 6 weeks and even longer where I had lingering effects. And even though I worked with in brain rehabilitation, it still was something that I found in the ER when I went there. Everything they cleared me they took a CT scan, an imaging of my brain to make sure there was no significant damage. And they said, sort of offhanded, you could have a concussion, a mild concussion, sort of as, yeah, it could happen. But no information, no guidance, no following up and make sure and do this and that. So this was a few years ago. It's definitely gotten better, but I still have patients who come to me who are having memory difficulties, concentration difficulties. They have frequent headaches, different symptoms that are concussion. It's been determined that they have a concussion and they're looking for answers, and they're not really getting it from certain healthcare providers. So I hope that this episode will help you give you a little bit of information, and maybe it's someone in your life who is experiencing a concussion, or you're referring to this if you yourself are currently or have experienced a concussion. So let's start with the difference between a concussion and a TBI. TBI, traumatic brain injury. Both are injuries to the brain. A concussion is the short-term loss of normal brain function, whereas a TBI, traumatic brain injury, is a lasting brain function injury. That's really the difference. It's some people will say a mild TBI could be more like a concussion, but it really is the lasting effects of brain function when it has been altered, when normal brain function has been altered. So, symptoms of a concussion, and then I'll talk about that, and then I'll give you the symptoms of a TBI. Now, these aren't all of the symptoms, but these are the most likely that people will experience. And the key is that you may experience, or someone may experience these right away, but often it's not for hours or days afterwards. And that's why people will experience a concussion, they think they're okay, and then it's 1 or 2 days later or a few days later, and then they're suddenly having these issues. So some of these symptoms would be headache or neck pain, nausea, ringing in the ears, dizziness or fatigue, feeling dazed or out of it, sort of like this brain fog and not yourself. Difficulty, I would add in there difficulty concentrating. um, Headache was mentioned. It's like it can be sporadic kind of headache. Now, more severe concussion, that's when the brain is more significantly affected in a concussion. There could be convulsions or seizures, drowsiness, inability to wake up, a headache that gets worse and doesn't go away, weakness, numbness, or decreased coordination, repeated vomiting or nausea, confusion, slurred speech. Of course, any of these symptoms, seek medical care. Go with your instinct of something is wrong and go and get looked at by a medical professional. Now, on the flip side, symptoms of TBI can be similar, but they're actually, and as mentioned, they're longer lasting, but they can be similar. There's headache, there's confusion, lightheadedness, dizziness. There are also, it doesn't happen all the time, but most people who have lost consciousness will be diagnosed with a TBI, even if it's for a short few minutes of losing consciousness. They usually are diagnosed with a TBI. There could be blurred vision or tired eyes, difficulty concentrating on reading, ringing in the ears, fatigue or lethargy, changes in sleep. And some of these, as you can, if you compare with a concussion, they're similar. There's behavioral or mood changes. That definitely is something with a TBI. Problems with memory, focus, attention, or thinking. And those can happen also with a concussion. This podcast, we're going to focus mainly on the concussion and how to manage a recovery from a concussion. And first and foremost, it's rest. I know it's hard, but really rest. And that means a few things because people will think, well, rest, I can just lie around and watch TV or be on my phone all day. That's not the kind of rest. I want to talk about why the type of rest is important. So, the brain's primary role is to scan the environment outside the body and within the body to process information in order to adapt and respond or to not respond. What happens with a concussion is there's a significant decrease in the amount that the brain can process at a time. Also, how the brain processes certain intake can be affected, and how the information is coming into the brain can also influence how the brain is processing. So I always give my patients this example. Imagine a normal brain can handle 4 cups of information that's coming auditorily, visually, tactile, like it's just coming in from different ways. 4 cups, always processing. It's able to process 4 cups of information. When someone has a concussion and a TBI, but in this case, we're talking concussion, it's gone down from 4 cups to 1 or 2 cups. So the brain can't process as much as it used to because of the swelling, the inflammation, the bruising that has happened due to the concussion. So imagine you're going from 4 cups to 2 cups. Once that 2 cups limit is reached, everything just spills out. Imagine like you're trying to fill from a pitcher to a 2 cup capacity. It's just overflowing. That overflowing are the symptoms. They're the headache, the dizziness, the difficulty concentrating, the memory, just the feeling out of it, maybe the nausea. That is your brain going, okay, there's too much stuff coming in, and now I'm just going, it's overflowing, and this is what causes the symptoms. Now, that is a very basic way to how I'm explaining the brain function and what is happening. But it's a really good visual, and I use it with my patients, and they're like, "Oh, it makes sense then," because they're wondering, like, why do I start doing some work or start trying to concentrate, maybe reading something, and then I get a headache, and or I'm trying to watch TV and I get ringing in my ears, or there's noise that wouldn't bother me, but now it does, and I have sensitivity. So, what happens is that many people want to jump into their life again. And that was me. I mean, I had a concussion and I was thinking, I'll just go to work the following Monday. But I was having difficulty concentrating. I had a lot of fatigue. My patients who have experience concussions, headache, irritation, fatigue, light sensitivity, noise sensitivity. So, what we want to do is first off, give yourself time to rest. Then people are always like, okay, when can I go back? When can I start? So you really want to use the following criteria to know when you can start going back into your normal activities. And I want you to look at these activities through the lens of the following criteria. When you're doing a task, whether it's at home or at work, wherever, what is the type of auditory? Is there auditory sensitivity? Do you have visual sensitivity when you're doing the task? Do you find tactile irritation? So maybe you start getting hot or itchy just because it's an overload of the nervous system and the brain is communicating to the nervous system, and when there's auditory, visual sensitivity, tactile irritation sensitivity, that overloads the brain and the nervous system. You also want to look at how long, what's the duration of the task? It could have been that you could sit down and read or do a project or start on something in an hour, no problem. You could concentrate. But now you're noticing that, oh, you can only do 10 minutes. So you use that as the gauge of, okay, 10 minutes, and then I'm going to take a break and then come back to it after you take a 10-15 minute break and then try again. Or it could be you have to just take an hour break. Every brain is a little different. You have to be like a detective and curious as to when am I ready to step into this activity and how long can I do it. The other criteria is you want to look at the complexity. If you're starting back into activities, if it's a task that requires multitasking, you have to go from the computer to your book to writing to calling, like you're multitasking, then that will affect how efficiently your brain can handle it. Remember, 4 cups down to 2 cups. It could be that after some rest, your 2 cup capacity is going up more to that 2.5, 3 cup capacity, but you use this criteria: auditory, visual, tactile, duration, time, and complexity to determine, okay, if I can handle 3 cups, but what's the effect of those criteria, and is it causing any overflow from that 3 cups? I love this acronym. It's STOP, and it's an acronym from the mindfulness practice. STOP means S is for stop, T is for take a breath, O is observe, and P is proceed. So, what I like to do, I recommend this to my patients, is use this acronym to assess how your brain is managing the activity. So you're doing an activity, instead of going full force into it, stop, take a breath, observe how's my brain feeling? How's my body feeling? How am I doing this task? And how you proceed for the P, how you proceed is you're either going to proceed to continue the task, or you need to take a break, or you need to modify, maybe put noise canceling headphones in if there's outside noise. Maybe you need to put a ball cap on because the light is causing sensitivity to your eyes. So just by shading your eyes, that can really help as well. There's some other questions you can ask yourself as you're getting back into activities and knowing, is my brain ready for doing a little more complexity, a little bit more? You can ask yourself these questions. Am I feeling brain fullness or pressure or headache? And I can say that even years after having a concussion, it It happens once in a while if I'm really working on something that requires mental focus and concentration and on maybe on the computer and I'm typing. I noticed just even last week when I finished, I had like this light pressure. I knew that I had really pushed against the edge of my capability. I'm very aware of how my brain is feeling, and I take frequent breaks when needed. And I'm very in tune with my nervous system. That's when I work with my coaching clients and my patients. I really have them tap into their nervous system, how they're feeling for this dysregulation, and what can they do to help calm their nervous system and their brain. Another question you could ask yourself, am I having difficulty concentrating? Another question, are lights bothering me? Is sound bothering me? These are things, especially with student athletes. I'll give them these questions because they need to ask themselves and pause because they think they can just jump right back into things, and they're wondering why when they're on their phone and scrolling, why they're just feeling tired and they just want to go to sleep or they just can't concentrate. Another question is, how long can I concentrate before I start noticing a headache or difficulty concentrating? Or how long can I concentrate or do a task before light and sound is bothering me? Before I get irritated, before I get hot. Some people have that experience. How many activities can I handle in a day, morning, afternoon? This is a key thing. Like, what is your threshold? Because you could have been a person who could handle five appointments. Like, I'm going from this to this to this to this. But when you're recovering from a concussion, it could be only two things or one thing a day. Because again, go back to that 4 cups to 2 cups. It's the amount your brain has to process. And if you do too much on one day, you'll feel it the next day. I always remember we used to use this analogy with our kids because they would have such a busy weekend, sports on Saturday and Sunday, or it could have been on Wednesday, Thursday, really busy, busy. And the next day, the Friday, or if it was a Monday, they would just be so cranky over because they were overstimulated. And the day before, they just did everything and they did maximized on their time, and their brain and their body were just going full force. And the next day, that's when we always prepared for it. We were like, okay, is it coming? Where they get irritated, cranky, miserable. They need to sleep more. So it's somewhat similar. You got to figure out what your threshold is, and it will get better, but you have to really give your brain some time. Also ask your question or yourself the question, am I multitasking? Am I watching TV while I'm on my phone or texting on my phone while having a conversation? So notice that can be draining. It's all about the energy that the brain has. It can be very draining. I want to finish off by some important things or steps to maximize on brain recovery. So, first off, you want to change how you do things and your activities and your interactions by looking at if you're used to multitasking, don't multitask. If you're used to doing 10 activities a day, don't do so many activities. If you're used to having very dynamic conversations, just go one-on-one conversations. Allow your brain to heal. You also want to prioritize brain health nutrition. The Mind Diet, MIND, you can search that up, is a recommended diet for brain health. Adding supplements in to help brain recovery, this is key. Fish oil, omega-3s, and turmeric. You want to rest. You want to limit your to-do list. Do light exercise when you're cleared. Consider yoga nidra and meditation for recovery. So people recover at different speeds. There's no set time. You may have some symptoms go away fairly soon, but some some linger and they remain for a while. So just know that it's a process. Give your brain time to recover. All right. I would love to connect with you. So just find me on Instagram, Heather Colwich, or you can send me an email, heathercolwichwellness@gmail.com. My Legacy Life Coaching Program is open, so you can find the link in the show notes. Thanks for joining me, everyone.